Good. Now, can you all get up just to wake up a little? Because there was a lot of talks, and yeah, just look around, just have some stretch. It's good. We are still full house. This is great, actually. Yeah, super. Say hi to your neighbors. And you made it until here, so this is great. Good, thank you. So it has been really great last 2 days, and I'm happy that this is still full house and everybody survived 2 days of intensive topics, and you have a lot to process, I believe, me too. But now I want you to just sit back and enjoy some stories, because I will tell you some stories of how my journey evolved when I was trying to adopt this mindset. But first you might ask, who is this person? So I am a site reliability engineer at Trivago. If I have to choose one programming language that I have to code all my life, that would be Python. So I'm quite enthusiastic about it. I'm a blogger, photographer, and a crazy cat lady. But don't worry, I'm not going to show you any cat photos today. So, a couple of weeks ago, I had to explain myself to a product manager. Because, you know, they are very much outcome-driven people, and they want to know what you really want to achieve with this. Why did she ask this to me? Because I'm very passionate about this at work, and I point things out, and I talk about it, and I was very much insisting of sitting with engineers and working together, and she asked me, what is it? Like, what do we want to achieve with this? And I realized that there is still some gaps, not between devs and ops, and also with other people that we want to pull to make one product ready. But since you are so much hooked up in this topic, you might actually forget what was it again that you started, and what was it that you wanted to actually have this as a mindset. So I had to zoom out to think, what do we really want to achieve with this? And surprise, surprise, very, very first thing that came to my mind, because I have to explain this to her very, basic with some examples. And the first thing that came to my mind, automation. And as you heard a lot of talks today and yesterday and today, there was a lot of things about automating things. And this is probably big part of our job, is just keep automating things. And this, we were still automating things before too, but right now we do more, because why? We want to move faster. But I also ask myself, what else and why we automate things? So the very first reason that comes to your mind that you want to automate something is you repeat it, right? You repeat 3 times, it's manual, then you realize, maybe it's a good time to automate this, because nobody has time for anything to do manually. But there is also another aspect of automation, which we do in our job, to enable people, to give people platform that they see your job is not magic anymore. They can touch it. And this part is very important as well, because I tell you a story. So last year we had a small program which we used to use to trigger Jenkins job. So it was like a small Go program. It is used to be used as webhooks. Right now we use completely webhooks. So we had to kill this thing. For that, I had to, everyone take some parts from this tool, and whenever you take parts from this tool, you need to release, and you need to build, and you need to release it somewhere so that we can kill it easily. So I had to touch this tool. This is written 5 years ago, but we were still using it. And I realized that there was no automation on the build and the deploy parts, which is fine, because I thought I'm not the maintainer, so there is at least a make file. I can build the tool and put it in place. I did, but then they gave me, this is the artifactory that you have to upload this artifact. I'm like, okay, but I didn't have the sufficient rights. So I need to get the sufficient right, and I need to find the exact place where to put this binary in. And I thought the very first the easiest thing that came to my mind, I would just copy the previous version folder, paste it, change the binary with my new build. When I was doing that, I copied, I pasted, but I pasted somewhere else. I wanted to delete it. This was already the point that I was boiling inside, slowly. And I went to the team and I said, hey, this is so easy. We built and we deployed, this is already a common practice. Why it's not automated? And the very first thing the reaction I got was, it's only 2 months. We're going to get rid of these 2 months. So they think that this is not worth the time. It was, and I said it is worth the time, because in these 2 months, more and more people are going to use this tool, which if you really don't want to do it on your own, these people have to build this and they have to deploy it. Because I don't need to know which Artifactory it is. I don't need to know to have the sufficient right. I don't have to know which directory I'm going to put this. And if you really want to enable people, they don't have to know either. Because there is something called deployment pain that we don't talk. And deployment pain can lead to burnout. And this is it's going to sound really bold, but it is true. Because this is also from the book Accelerate that I was reading recently, that they did a couple of years of research, and they created facts, and they show everything about this. And then I realized there is something called deployment pain. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. So if your engineers create some code, but they don't know how this is actually deployed and where it is deployed, then they are so much under pressure because they don't want to touch it, because they're so afraid to break something. And automation is good because you give computers what they are good at, not thinking, executing things. And you don't want any developers or anybody in your organization to think and decide something so simple like computers can do. And this is one of the reasons we automate. But can we automate everything, though, right? So until now, we automate a lot of stuff, and we really have quite good understanding of automating things. But there are still things that you cannot automate, like what is the recommended repository settings? Or what is, in your organization, the JavaScript guidelines that you want developers to apply on their development environment? And for that, we created this little, we call knowledge base. It is full of articles that are only 1 or 2 steps or 3 steps things that helps everybody in the organization to actually follow it and get the things through. For example, you created your application is writing to a Kafka topic, and you want to check if the Kafka topic is already producing the messages or getting it. There is no way I can automate this, right? But I can still write a 3 steps how-to. This is the Docker image you're going to use, this is the bootstraps, and this is how you read the Kafka topics. Then instead of actually sitting with engineers doing this, I can just send this how-to to them, and they can just easily follow this. Because when they ask me these questions, they already know their problem. So I don't need to automate this. So if I cannot automate it, I can still document it. And this documentation doesn't have to be like a long list of things, but it can be like really, imagine Stack Overflow questions in your specific organization, written down in 3 or 4 steps, and you want to foster this. And plus, right now, I could even see that people start to think, oh, I did this 2 times already, but there is nothing I can write a script about it. Maybe I can write a small knowledge base article, which we call them. And you cannot imagine how it helped us foster our cultural aspect of enabling people. And this is one of them. So everything is not really automation, because you still work with people. Automation is good, and I think we also got a lot of, we do a lot of automation and we document things, right? Everything is good. But still, I realized when we are automating things, there are still things you hesitate. So this sentence from one of the application engineers I was working with came up. How many Docker images can we have? So this was a small application we just created, and we were trying to put the right build pipeline in place. There is a lot of practices about build pipelines, but I was telling them we should, every time you commit something, any branch, we should just run the unit test and build a Docker image for you with the commit hash. But this was a question for them, and they were not happy that it's going to generate a lot of Docker images that maybe they will never use, or maybe they will not actually need, and this is going to cause disk space. So it was really good takeaway for me, because you don't want to have, so the other idea that they gave me was they could develop everything in a branch. When they are ready, they can run this job to create the Docker image, then they can go to the stage and deploy it. No. I don't want any human intervention, or I don't want to give you any one more decision to make if this Docker image is now ready and you should push the button to create a Docker image. You create Docker images whenever you push a new commit to your branch. You run your unit tests whenever you commit to a branch. And the disk space is not that important anymore because we can clean that after. Because your time is the most expensive resource. It's not a disk space. It is not how many builds it runs. It is none of them. So that is the place that you should talk with the people you work with, is that these kind of things that you want to move faster, and it creates noise, and it does create noise, but you should tell them there is a way to clean that up. You can put a retention time for my disk space to be cleaned. And I wish our biggest problem was to just clean up the disk space. I think it is easier than giving the application engineers decide when to create. And this is what we don't want to have. And so this was a great takeaway for me, and to tell them that you don't need to have this. You don't need to think about this, because what we want to do is rapid feedback. We want to run, every time you commit something, the unit test. We want to see, whenever you decide to deploy something on edge or stage, then you already have something ready, and you can put the other pipeline to deploy in place. But you're not quite done yet, because building, deploying, storing is one part of the story. The other huge part of the story is when you're running this thing, when this is up live, and this is actually consumed by real users, which we talked about a lot during the conference also, that you need to measure and you need to get alerted in order to trust the things you create, in order to iterate on it. So I have a very interesting story. So my boyfriend and I happen to be software engineers, and sometimes we do hobby projects at the weekend. And we created a new project that takes some cute animal pictures from subreddit. It puts them into database. And then there's another cron job, little script, that takes these things and publishes them in Facebook page. So basically, we create a Facebook page, cute animal pictures, and see how we can handle this actually with only some cron jobs. And it did work, and it was great. So we had now 3,000 likes. People shares, and it cheers up their days. And it was just a hobby project for us. But after some time, we got this message that says, I hope your Christmas was full of happiness, and your New Year's will bring more celebration of your life and you. They have no idea about us. But I love following your post and haven't seen anything of late. I hope everything is good with your family. So they had no idea a bot is posting pictures, right? But what this actually was, and it was great, we engaged with people. But what this really was, that we were alerted by a human. So there was nothing we put as a basic alerting. There was no measurements. I mean, there is just one VM running on DigitalOcean and run some scripts, and we were like, it just works. And right now I see that if I don't see this in my timeline, I'm just checking and seeing if it is still running. But this was a human, actually, how many times actually someone walks into your team space and says, something is burning or something is failing, did you already notify it, or are you going to check or what do we do about this? This happens, right? How many times you were chased by someone saying that there is some problem with something and it cannot reach, and how do we do it? So why is this happening? You're either not in the right group of people who are alerted, or all the alerts are going to the same Slack channel that you already muted months ago. Or there is something missing, right? There is something missing, that you put a product somewhere, and you thought that it is just running, and you forgot about it. But this is not the whole story. You should still have the basics of alerting. So at the end, it was an authentication problem, and our token got expired, and we had to renew it, which is probably most common error you can get when you work with APIs. And right now, yes, we do have some alerting that is going to a Slack channel. But this was really important for me, because sometimes I'm also being alerted by someone else. And this is exactly the good point that you should think, okay, why a physical someone, like a person, walks to me and alerts me? This is the time you should think of, maybe we can create a small alerting somewhere and put this in place. But is this all done by me, though? Like, what am I talking about? Is it me who are doing all this stuff? Is it you? Like, who are we talking about? And even though, let's say, you already have this whole mindset of moving faster, you know why you do it, and you try to enable people. Let's say you created cross-functional teams that has everything in it, right? Product owner, your application engineers, your infra person. But be careful, you can still have hidden walls in your cross-functional teams too. Why? Because I observed some things that at some point, still application engineers sees me someone who is doing stuff on the black terminal and writes YAML. And I see them as like people who just have the IDEs open and writing code, right? Like if we create task and this is your part of the task, and this is my part, this is not working this way. So even though you're an infra person in the team, you shouldn't be hand-holding. You shouldn't be doing everything for the engineers. And it's the same place, so you shouldn't see them. They are developers and they only write codes. No, they are engineers. They are problem solvers. And we have different set of skills, right? I'm an engineer who likes doing the ops part of more. He's an engineer who likes development more. But we are still in the same ship. We still ship the same product. Therefore, it is the ownership that we should be talking about. And that's why give them more. Like, just put the Grafana and Prometheus and let them create their own dashboards, because they created this art piece, right? The whole application. And they know what they should measure. This doesn't mean you can't guide them. You can still guide them, give them what is the most important that you should be needing to know if an application is still healthy or not. So you still need collaboration. And same for them. Like, if it is working, the engineers can come to you and say, if they created the metrics on their own, they can ask you why Kubernetes actually behaved this way. Why is my pod killed in middle of night, right? They should be able to also challenge your side of the work too, that if we are shipping this thing together, then we should actually ask and challenge the same parts of the problem. And actually, a couple of weeks ago, I was sick for one whole year, a whole week, luckily. And I realized one of our, the same application that the Docker image story, one of the alerts that we put didn't have the region information in, because Trivago has 3 regions that we serve, and Asia, Europe, and US. And I realized that alert comes, but it says prod, but the region part was missing. I guess I just forget one of the configuration in the alert. So I created a small pull request because it really bothered me, and I told the engineers that I'm really not working. I just wanted to put this ready so that it is there, and I'm aware that the region is not there. And the answer I got was like, oh, we realized the same, and actually we were very much bothered because we didn't know which metrics we should look at. And I'm really happy you created TPR because I can roll this out. And they did roll this out. This wasn't about application, if you think about developers writing only the application code. This was nothing about their Java container. This was just monitoring stack, and this was just the alerting didn't have one single word in it. And they knew this was a very necessary information. And they wanted to roll this out, and they rolled this out into production. And this wasn't scary, and this was something that they were actually really happy. And these are the things that you see things are working. You see that engineers are having the same mindset that you have, that you want to foster. But this comes with transparency, right? This comes with showing my work to them. This comes with them including me their sessions to show me which kind of alerts are important. This comes with actually really being transparent to them and show them your failure. Because they already know what you are doing. So right now, we have an infrastructure channel in Slack that is having 150 people inside. And this is where we broadcast our maintenance work. or any kind of work that you think some applications might be impacted. So before, people were doing things over the wall, right? They were changing your DNS config, and you wouldn't have any idea why your metrics were like weird for 1 second. Or sometimes you didn't realize. Or sometimes they think that it's not going to be any impact, but it does have an impact, because we can't hide these things. And right now, we share them in our, for example, Slack channel. When we start updating Kubernetes Edge. Even Edge, right? So like, and it should have no impact, but we still write them into a thread that this region is done, this is happening, this is tested. And, or same with, for example, like putting new Logstash and Kibana updates, that it just says the impact, expect small delay in data visible. So you might have, if you were still like having the old mindset, you might have thought, it's not going to have an impact, or maybe they won't even realize there is something latency. But no, people actually care about this. If your engineers are already all together and they work with the whole stack, they want to know what is happening. So even though you think there will be no impact with your update, let people know. Just broadcast it. It doesn't that they have to read your message, but they can still make sense of, oh, this is the reason, actually, something was changing here, and that is why my metrics are looking a little bit spiky around this time. Or they can even maybe find some problems that you didn't think it can be impacted, right? They can actually write that, hey, I see something weird here. Is this related? And you cannot imagine how much it helps to create this trust between teams, because they see that you don't hide your failures. They see that there is nothing magic about this operation side, because that is the reason we created this, right? We want to show ops visible. And this, of course, the technology changed, we use cloud, and many things happen. But this is the good part, that to show them this is not magic, and we are still on the same ship. We ship something together. And not only tech people in this channel, by the way, the product owners as well. And they share things with us when there is something weird is happening, so that it is quite open to everyone, that they can see what is happening with the infrastructure. So infrastructure is nothing different or away from the production, from the product we are running. But you might say, we don't have a DevOps team, or we don't have any team who takes care of this, or I am actually the only one, we just started this thing, I don't know how I'm going to contribute this thing on my own. We don't have a DevOps team either. Actually, when I started Trivago 2 years ago, I was hired as a platform engineer to a team called Software Operations. And this team was created because we had a data center, and there was 10 people of data center operations, which were full of sysadmins, and there were developers, and it was working the old way. And I guess our team was created to be the gap, because you need to start somewhere, right? And to be the gap in between, to give the platform instead of like handling the servers. And then eventually, right now, we actually became the team, not even a team, just group of people, and we moved to the product teams and sit with them, and we have now areas that we make sure things are good and running. So like we actually liked working with engineers, sitting with them, and show them that this is our product, and your job and my job is equally important, and this is what brings us live. And that's why right now we're just a group of people who have some flex time to do the shared maintenance, but half of my time is with engineers, with product owners, with QA, with everyone, to show them that we enable this and we do this together. And that's why also in this first year of my job, when I was in this more like the small team, all I was doing was automation. I automated little things. I automated a lot of build pipelines. I created tools for engineers to use and make their life easier. But for the last 1 year, I am collaborating more. I'm sitting with engineers. I create alerts. I show them how to create alerts. So the first iteration of my talk was full about automation. It was all about automation work. Now I realize, I zoom out, for last 1 year, I do more collaboration. This still has automation in it, but I do more collaboration. And I realize that there is no one way to contribute to this mindset. So it might be period of time you do a lot of automation. It might be period of time you talk a lot. It might be period of time you just create alerts. And it is fine. As long as you commit to iterate on this, as long as you personally and individually have this mindset and you can challenge things, things are moving. It's moving slow, but it's moving. And that is why I had to explain myself to product owner. Now, how did I get to product owner if I was only working with the developers? And that is exactly what we are trying to do, right? It's not just devs and ops and this wall, it's everyone. Everyone involved in this. The QA, the product managers, and we do this not with one way. We do this with automation. We do this with the new technologies that are coming, like cloud. We do this more infrastructure as a code. We do this with collaboration. We do this with documentation. So there is a lot of work. So don't worry about it. Just do it. Just challenge the idea. Just ask questions of why things are not automated. Ask questions that let's sit down and do this together. Or like teach people, give them ideas. And this is what happened with the product owner and me, because she was doing the backlog, right? She should know a little bit of which kind of mindset actually we are working together with. And at the end of my conversation, it's going to sound really cheesy, but she was like, sorry. At the end, I was actually able to collect these 4 things. So we do a lot of automation because we want to have rapid feedback, so we try a lot and we put at least basic alerting in place. We collaborate, and this comes with transparency. These 4 things in my story for the last 2 years was the most fundamental things that I gathered from these stories. And as long as I commit to do things with these 4 things, things are really changing. And yeah, at the end of my talk with the product owner, it's going to sound cheesy, but she was like, that makes so much sense. Because she was able to link these things with Lean, with Agile, with Scrum, everything she knows. And she was like, this makes so much sense. This is all actually we wanted to have. And I didn't know there is something like this that people are already working about. And more importantly, she now knows. She went ahead and she read some articles about what is product manager doing in DevOps world. She's right now like talking with me. She's using more words of DevOps, or she's using more words of being with infra engineers too. Or she's kind of like backing me right now, like got my back, and she's like trying. And this was already one contribution for me that I did on my work. And I was really happy to share with you today. That's all I have. Thank you.
Many thanks to share that with you.
So since this is last talk, and I hate to be the last talk, I never did this before because I really like, after my talk, talking with all of you and getting more stories. How is it in your organization? What is that you struggle? And right now I'm not going to have that. So please share your stories with me, reach me from Twitter, give some feedback, and that's the only way I can actually feel like I reached you. And of course now you can ask me questions as well.
Many thanks. Any question? Yeah. Okay. 2 microphones. You see people running.
Forest distance for Peter to run, but okay, didn't work out. So what about incident response? So you mentioned SRE as your role, and you probably have some embedded SREs, to my understanding. But like, how is this like on-call rotation working for you in your situation in incident response and etc.?
Yeah, I think we're iterating. So the good part was that we evolved into people who work with engineers, but still we have the other 50% of time that we actually work on the maintenance and writing toolings on how to store Kafka topics. So we still have people, or we still have time to do that. But since this is a transition, that we still have little new applications, and this was a whole new project in our, like we renewed a lot of stuff in the backend. So there was a lot of work on the automation and the building and deploying and everything. So I right now believe that the more we move actually to complete the basics, and then we will actually move to more SRE side. right now we do both, but this doesn't mean this is the best thing, right? But this is what we have. Right now, in our organization, this is right now what we have, and we try to make like best of it. And that's why actually I also asked myself, like, what is SRE and what is DevOps, and how do we actually get this? I realized that the SRE part is actually more you work with the platform and you create tools around the infrastructure. But right now, my work is still a lot of collaboration, because I see still a lot of gaps there to contribute. So I think eventually we're going to move more on the SRE side, and when you have more and more capable engineers who actually also like very interested in the ops side too, and they can actually manage their own. Like from now on, the applications I have with, they know how their Docker image is slimmer. They know what health check they should do. And they know how to change their entry point in the Docker image. So if they are still having problems, they can come here with more meaningful questions. We can work. But I can imagine that our work is now actually going to be more on the reliability side. But this doesn't mean you still don't collaborate. So, yeah. So we are iterating on it.
More questions.
Right now we are on call. But we still have engineers as a passive role, that if we see something that we need to call. But I am in favor of having everyone on call. To actually, like, because it puts you in the really same ship after. You realize that you really want to make your product better, that you don't want to be waken up. And I think everyone wants to have this. Everyone has to have this, and not, you shouldn't have one group of people that is taking care of this. But since we just put this in the on-call one also, we put it in place quite recently. So yeah, we are iterating.
More questions. Nearby.
You mentioned the 4 things that are good for you and make you motivated and keep up going. What are some biases or negative feelings? I mean, obviously, when you cannot reach one of those 4.
Yes. You will have some application engineers that don't know much about it. Maybe they are on the field for a really long time, and they already know the old way of working, and they're comfortable with this. So you have all type of people, right? And that you need to work with them differently. So I don't have all this perfect engineering or the teammates that are so enthusiastic about the ops side and they want to learn. But there are still people, they just want to sit down and write their code. And that is okay, but it doesn't mean you still cannot encourage them. And I know it takes effort, but if you really want to foster this, and you know that you're not the only one who benefits, you really need to put some effort into actually pushing those people a little bit like off their comfort zone. So, for example, one of my colleagues, I was able to like let him know that he should create the dashboards because I can't. But I still tried. I tried, and I give him the dashboard that I couldn't manage to put it in place. And he really had to help me. And once he helped me a little, then he's going to be the one who is actually watching the dashboard. So there are a lot of struggles, and it doesn't happen like one moment the other. So it doesn't still mean that all the people I work with are super agile, they know what they're doing, and it is happening. It is not. And at the end, we are also all humans, so we act things differently, we take things differently personally also. It's just, what it really helps is actually creating the trust. If there is one most important thing I could say is that you tell him that you don't want to do this as a favor to him or her. You want to do this because you are part of the whole product. And you can only do this together. So there is nothing happening if you don't collaborate. So we talk a lot about tools, right? We talk a lot about a lot of things, but still there are humans creating those. So we really should put some effort on communicating and collaboration. But which kind of bias are you talking about? Do you have any example or anything you struggle?
Just like a bad feeling of you don't want to go for it because you don't feel the dynamics or the collaboration, or you feel that you're alone in the boat.
Yeah. but you're not alone, right? Like, you shouldn't do this alone, right? If I realize that if I'm having actually problems on certain things, and I still have teammates who might have some ideas, I have a team lead who might have some ideas to give me something. So you don't think that you should do this alone. And you can only make awareness by just at least telling one more person for help, for any kind of bias you think there is. So I don't think we can ever solve our problems without much talking. But I know it hurts and it takes courage. I don't really have an actionable thing to say.
Hi, thanks for the talk. You mentioned 4 points. I think I can add, from my experience, another one that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Empowerment.
Yeah.
So you empower the people around you to come out of their comfort zone and learn new skills. What also helps me is get cross backgrounds. I have done in IT from support to development, ops, so I can understand the frustrations from a development point of view, from an ops point of view, and meet in the middle. Definitely. There is also another comment, the old way of doing things. What I have heard the phrase silo mentality, where each team lives in its own silo, in its own container, and doesn't want to interact with other persons. And that's, I think, is the, how can I say, the inhibitor of moving forward if you want to stay in that comfort zone. Obviously, communication is the best option to move. Another thing that helps me also, and helps my colleagues to move forward, is you go to a service mentality. If you, from a customer's perspective, if something is failing, he doesn't care if ops is not working, is not doing its work, or the devs. It's just a combination of both. So if you go to that mentality, you help each other. We had a case in point some weeks ago where a customer was having issues. We managed to pull a team from from development, from ops, from apps, so from an infrastructure point of view, to get what's going wrong and find a solution. So that helps from our side as well.
I completely agree.
Thanks.
And thanks for the contribution, because it comes with transparency, and it comes with you definitely need empowerment. And if you you see people, it is hard. And I still have struggles. I also have struggles when I'm working with still the data operations team, for example, to like how to show people that what I'm trying to, or what we are trying to do, is for all of us. Because you said it perfectly. The users don't know about which part of. If users cannot reach you, they don't have to know which part of is. Like, that's why you cannot blame one person, right? That's why if one product is offline, then it is everybody's. And that's why it's great actually right now to if you pull product managers too, if you pull QA too, if you show them failures, or like right now I'm also getting alerted from QA too, because I realize that they are actually watching some of the error rates, which is, I find it really great, because it looks like we created platform for them with some graphs that shows a couple of errors, and this is what they're interested in. So at the end, if you are the one who really want to foster this, then you definitely need some empowerment, and you want to have this, you need to have some courage to actually pull people out. And communication, of course. But thank you. This was very valuable.
More question?
We have all the time. We can just sit down and share stories.
No? Yeah. Then it's a great pleasure for me to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And not only for the talk.